The Trump administration's push to shrink the federal workforce has left employees across the country shocked and frustrated. Federal agencies have been ordered to lay off probationary workers, those with less than a year on the job or so, who do not yet have civil service protections. While the administration claims this move will increase efficiency, the chaotic implementation of the moves have raised concerns about the fairness and long-term consequences. These layoffs are part of a broader effort led by Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to reduce government spending. This follows a failed voluntary buyout program, called failed because 75,000 workers actually accepted the deal, but they are looking for 100,000 to 200,000 to make it more viable. These workers would get paid till September, essentially furloughed on their own, would pay in benefits all the way for September. Now, with those offers, they were fine. But layoffs are now happening, being mandated by agencies to cut the fat, and by Tuesday, they'll basically have the first rounds of layoffs done. Federal employees across the country are finding themselves blindsided by termination emails that they weren't expecting, and this has been a big deal for many folks. Starting off with the Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA saw over 1,000 employees fired, including researchers who are working right now on cancer treatments and opioid addiction issues. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, saw 1,300 employees cut, and that's about 10% of their actual workforce. And the Department of Education, which Donald Trump has said is going to be basically buried at some point in time, did lay off some people to get started. These were mostly special education specialists and student aid officials. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins actually is defending the move, speaking up for the government, for the administration, saying that Americans wanted smaller government. The people asked for this. But there are plenty of critics arguing that the cuts being done as they are haphazardly, and there's no regard for any consequences going forward. Now, let's talk about some people that were laid off to give you more kind of details on how they're feeling, how it's working. The execution for the layoffs, of course, have been disorganized with employees who already took buyouts being paid till September, they were told, still receiving termination notices. Now, the OPM, Office of Personnel Management, said some of these were errors and they'll fix that and they'll honor anyone who took a buyout before they got the termination letter. But here's some people who got these letters and have to deal with the aftermath going forward. Nicholas Dieter, who is a natural resource specialist in Kansas, he was fired by email and he actually signed the buyout papers. He was frustrated, expressed that the process was rushed, poorly thought out, and now he's in limbo because he got fired on a Friday. He'll have to wait till Monday till someone can answer his question. Andrew Lennox, a Marine veteran working in the VA in Michigan, was terminated suddenly as well, despite his passion for helping his fellow veterans. And a man named David Rice, who's a disabled Army paratrooper, who's working on radiation exposure issues at the Department of Energy, real science stuff, was also laid off. He's been reassured, or was reassured, that his job was safe, and then found himself fired via email. He just bought a house, so he has that to deal with, along with the other folks we mentioned, and many other folks out there who have been fired or will be fired along the way between now and Tuesday. Labor unions and labor activists are pushing back against these layoffs, as they would. The National Treasury Employees Union, NTEU, and other labor groups have filed a lawsuit arguing that these firings will harm government agencies already struggling with staffing shortages. They claim that many departments have been unable to replace retiring employees due to previous budget freezes. Friday, the advocacy group Democracy Forward called for an investigation into whether the mass terminations violated federal personnel laws. Meanwhile, protests erupted outside the Hubert H. Humphrey building in Washington, D.C., as workers expressed fears that the cuts would extend beyond probationary employees. Even some Republicans have voiced concerns, starting with Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. She's criticizing the move on social media, arguing that the indiscriminate cuts do not necessarily lead to better efficiency. Just cutting people just at random doesn't mean get efficient workers staying there. She has stated that her office has tried to get answers from federal agencies and is getting only vague responses in return. The administration claims the layoffs will save millions, but experts question whether the impact on the federal budget will actually be significant at all. The government spends about $270 billion annually for federal salaries. 60% of those salaries go to Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and Veteran Affairs. Even if all civilian workers were cut, the federal deficit would still exceed $1 trillion. Moreover, these particular job cuts could slow the U.S. economy. If enough federal workers are actually dismissed, the overall employment rate may drop, potentially leading to negative job growth. The last time the U.S. experienced job losses like this was December of 2020, and this was in the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And beyond the numbers, the layoffs are affecting real people and the services they provide. Workers like David Rice and Nicholas Dieter worry about how their sudden job losses will impact their families and their communities they serve. Many of these employees join the federal workforce with the hope of making a difference, whether by helping veterans, protecting the environment, or improving public health. As the government moves forward to make more of these cuts happen, the debate over size and role of federal agencies continues. For now, thousands of workers remain in limbo, unsure of their futures and the impact their decisions will have on this nation. What are your thought processes on right now, the way things are going for these job cuts? They are haphazard and they do seem to not be having very much rhyme or reason. This is my opinion. This is me saying from my point of view. But from people I know who work in the federal government who were offered these buyouts, basically no one I knew actually took the buyouts, and people who are now seeing that their jobs being cut, which I do know people who have gotten these emails saying their jobs are not being terminated, even though some of them are not quite in the probationary period or just thought their jobs were safe, are no longer safe. How do you feel about the job cuts and them saving money for us, U.S., the American people? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think it's a bit overkill? Do you think it'll balance itself out eventually once we get the first wave done and they know what they're doing? Your comments, very much warranted. Please, please, please. Oh, by the way, this is the second video on this channel. We're doing some things to make it work out. For all the people who sent all their hate and love in the last bit of comments, thank you for giving so much love to one video on one random channel with basically 8 subscribers at the time. Next time, subscribe. Join what's going on. Share this with more folks so I can get more hate responses, so I can get those viewers up. I may not have the subscribers yet, but help me get those views right now. This is the second channel attached to the Conversation Project. See more there by searching the Conversation Project on YouTube and learn more about what we do, where we do more things that are less one-sided, less my opinion of things, and more a conversation. This is a conversation as well, although the conversation seems to be pretty lopsided as things go. In the meantime, let us know what you feel about what we're doing right now, what we're saying right now, and the job cuts that are happening in the moment, and the people and their fears for their jobs, especially the ones that fear for their jobs that took the actual buyout, now worried if that's actually going to come to fruition.